This is the Yanks Go Yard podcast with Adam Weinrib and Thomas Carinante.
Welcome to Thursday's edition of the Yanks Go Yard podcast, the podcast that celebrates when the Yankees win their first 4 series of the year, which has only happened 3 times in the last 20 years. Is that good? I don't know. I thought this team took its foot off the gas pedal in spring training. Nope, guess not. Oh, I thought the Red Sox learned to win by starting spring training 9-0. I guess not. It's almost like that's completely meaningless. Didn't the Royals start 13-1? Yeah, they're 4-9 now. And pleased to be here to talk about the Yanks hot start with pinch hitting for Thomas Carinante. Today, it's like Succession, but a lot less interesting and impactful. And we're talking about the Yankees specifically. Peter Dewey, thanks for joining me, man. I really appreciate being able to hang out, talk Yanks, and we're going to address a whole lot of things. But welcome to the show before I set everything up.
Thank you, Adam. I hope I can fill in as well as Franchy Cordero was filled in this year. That's my goal for today.
He can't go now. It kind of sucks for the roster, but we'll talk about that a little bit later. We're going to be taking you through. We're starting off by just doing our personal bullpen trust trees. It felt like as good a time as any. Jonathan Loaisiga goes down over the weekend. A couple of players step up in his absence. Tommy Kahnle hits the 60-day IL in the corresponding move too. But I don't know how you feel. I'm not really worried about the bullpen at this point. My trust tree is mostly a list of trustworthy leaves rather than crunchy ones on the ground. Don't worry, we're also going to recap the Guardian series as best we can. The umpires lying to Aaron Boone. This fun little rivalry taking its next step into the realm of cheating, plus injury updates. Did Carlos Rodón suffer a setback? Seems like he kind of did. Maybe a small one. Was supposed to throw a bullpen yesterday. Does anybody know if that happened? No word yet. Plus the Franchy Cordero show, of course. Make sure to find us on Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Spotify, wherever you get your podcasts. That's where the audio feed will be, as well as on YouTube, Mondays and Thursdays, 2 o'clock Eastern. We appreciate you sticking with us this week, and we'd appreciate you even more if you hit subscribe, chime in on the chat, and join us for the conversation. Before I toss it to you, Peter, something that I know you'll appreciate, betting content. Are you a bettor in New York, New Jersey, or Connecticut? If you aren't a bettor and you'd like to start being a bettor, that's probably better in this specific instance. Because if you are a new customer to DraftKings in New York, New Jersey, or Connecticut, we've got an offer for you. You can bet $5 on any sport, get $150 in bonus bets if your bet wins, as long as you use the code YanksGoYard. That's new customers only. Minimum $5 deposit and wager required. 21 plus and present in New York, New Jersey, Connecticut. You got a gambling problem? Well, in New York, you can call 877-8-HOPE-NY or text HOPE-NY 467-369. In New Jersey, call or text 1-800-GAMBLER. Sometimes I want to cross the border just so I can call that alternate number. Seems more fun. And in Connecticut, you can call 888-789-7777 or visit ccpg.org/chat. See full terms at DraftKings.com or in the description below. Now, let's start with the bullpen before we circle back to the most updated action. Peter, if you had to bet on this bullpen so far, you'd probably be a happy man. More often than not, the Yankees bullpen has come up huge in their 8-4 start to the season, even without some of the names we anticipated. And yesterday they got a scare, but ultimately, I don't know, maybe it's just a feeling. Sometimes I feel like you end up in a jam against the Cleveland Guardians and you find yourself thanking God that Ahmed Rosario is up. It's a weird take. Steven Kwan, they can't get him out. Jose Ramirez clears the bases if he ends up coming up that inning, but you land on Rosario, and I'm always like, I think you can whiff him, and Clay Holmes did it, and that's why he's sort of he was one of my early pain points this season, and he has ended up towards the top of my trust tree. But no spoilers yet. Overall, before we go person by person, how confident are you in this unit? 'Cause it's kind of weird. When they lose a game, it's because the bullpen faltered so far this year. The weird game in Baltimore, the late, Jimmy Cordero uncorking wild pitches, some middle relievers taking late relief innings, the Giants game when everybody was leaky, but most of the time they've been pretty consistent.
Yeah, I think the bullpen, especially with the injuries you have to consider, it's been a win so far this season. I am a little concerned with some of the length we've gotten from some of our starters. Is this sustainable for an entire 162 game season? But we can cross that bridge when we get there. I think right now it's all about you got to win these games. But I think from a perspective of you look at last year's bullpen and this year's bullpen, pretty similar in terms of the names that are there. And Michael King has looked good. Wandy Peralta has looked good. Clay Holmes, like you said, looked really good yesterday, getting out of that jam. So I'm satisfied with the bullpen. I think if you told me before the season they weren't going to have Canely, Jonathan Loaisiga, obviously you don't have Efros. If you told me at the deadline he wasn't going to be in the bullpen this year, like all things considered, you kind of have to be happy as a Yankees fan about where they're at this point.
Yeah, it's funny. Clay Holmes has, I'd rather see the version of Clay Holmes I saw yesterday than the one I saw in July and August, where you're just like, I don't know what's wrong with this dude, and I don't know if there's a path forward. Yesterday was the Clay Holmes we're used to. He's either automatic, like he was in the Orioles series, or it's these very specific foibles where gets the first out of the inning immediately. Second guy goes up 1-2, hits him on the foot with what's supposed to be that slider at the back foot. And you're like, I feel like I've seen that 100 times. It's like, all right, we'll move on. Then he immediately puts the ball on the ground again. You can't turn 2 because Miles Straw is fast. Pinch hitter comes up. He loses the strike zone. 8 balls and 9 pitches. And for most pitchers, you'd be nervous and you'd say, well, that's not good. Like if you lose a strike zone in the middle of an opportunity, you're trying to pick up a save, it's hard to find it again. But he clips the corner on Rosario with one slider. And so everybody, John Flaherty said it in the game. He's like, oh, he found the slider. Like, if you keep going to that pitch, you could probably get out of this. He goes to it 2 more times. 1 more clips the corner, 1 more just off the corner. Rosario swings over. Holmes is my number 2 on my bullpen trust tree at this point, but he's still my closer. My number 1, I can't quit Wandy Peralta. And I think it's something about the pitch clock. I just know when Wandy comes in that I'm not only getting he pitched to the pitch clock before the pitch clock even existed. I just know I'm going to get the quickest inning of all time. And if he's mostly going to be around the zone, if he's going to get hit, he's going to get hit quickly. But I'm not really going to be wasting time. Not a lot of mound visits, not a lot of confusion. Either he's got it or he doesn't. And when he does, the inning is 8 pitches long. So some of this is postseason 2022 biased. I feel like he leveled up a little bit last year. But Holmes is my number 2, and he's my number 1. I know Holmes is your number 2. You have a slightly different number 1 than me.
Yeah, I'm going Michael King number 1. I think Michael King has kind of become the high leverage Chad Green of this bullpen. Like the Yankees prior to Chad Green going down with Tommy John last year, like you needed an out, you brought Chad Green into the game. That was the move. And now Michael King, not only can he do that, but he's doing it at length. He's giving you multiple innings, and this is going back to last year. He was doing it. I just think the thing for me with Michael King is the strikeout stuff. When he is on, he's unhittable. So there's days that Wandy looks very good. There's days that Holmes looks very good. But you did make a good point about Holmes. Like for him, it's batter to batter. One batter, he looks like the best pitcher in baseball, and the next one, you're like, is Aroldis Chapman back in the bullpen? Like, what is going on here? So Michael King, I just think when he's on, he has the best stuff in this pen. Probably outside of Loaisiga, but obviously they don't have him right now. So I have him as my number 1. I have Holmes as my number 2 because I just think over this last year and a half, really since they acquired him, he's exceeded all expectations to this point. So I think it would be foolish not to have him in that number 2 spot. Like he is their best option as a closer. And I would be very surprised if he relinquished that role this year. It's going to take him like really faltering because last year he kind of struggled and then he started to pick it back up again towards the end of the year. So yeah, that's my 1-2 for sure.
I would agree with that. And I moved King up to my number 3 slot just because first 2 outings of the season, he was not vintage Michael King. The stuff was ticking down. He was answering questions about velo being down 2 miles an hour, and he was answering them with cryptic statements, which is not what you want, where he was saying, my elbow's fine. I just don't know. Maybe I'm messed up. Maybe my motion's messed up. Hey, maybe my home life's messed up. Like you feel like he's 1 sentence away from being like, you fix it or whatever. And it's like, I don't know. It's just, he wasn't hostile, but he was kind of like, yeah, I wish I knew. And when you hear that, it's kind of like death of a salesman, like, shit. To the point where when Loaisiga went on the IL, everybody sort of thought King was the corresponding move. They were like, all right, so King's obviously going on the IL. He can't figure it out. But in Baltimore over the weekend, he's awesome. Yesterday, the bullpen puts up 5 no-hit innings to help win that game. And he provides 2 of them, and he provides them on 25 pitches. And the stuff was fastball back up to 96. Slider down the corners again, not lingering in the zone like when Trey Turner punished him last week in the Phillies game. That really got my alarm bells going and got people asking those questions. He looks basically back to normal. And I think ultimately, if we can get another month of this, my top 3 looks like yours. It's King, Holmes, Wandy. But for now, it's just Wandy, Holmes, King, because I know what I'm getting with Wandy, and I still need a little more evidence that King is back to normal. Now, first of all, it's just so nice doing these trust trees without Aroldis Chapman and Zach Britton. I appreciate you bring Chapman up. I don't have to think about him anymore. He started the year with 4 shutout innings, throwing 103 with 8 Ks for the Royals, and it's just like, cool. Like, I don't care. I don't have to be the person who reads the stories about how he discovered a new pitch this year and the splitter's going to change everything. I could just sit back here and let him do that for Kansas City and let the Braves trade for him at the deadline, and he's not in my life, which is awesome.
Yeah, I'm very glad to not have to sweat anymore. Aroldis Chapman can't find the zone 9th innings. I mean, Boone obviously went away from him last year, but it was just so frustrating when you knew at times over his Yankees tenure there were better options back there, and they just kept throwing him out there in these save situations. And the thing for me with Chapman is I think Yankees fans, all of us are a little bit spoiled. We had 20 years of Mariano Rivera. Like when the 9th inning has never been a issue, obviously anything that is less than that, you're going to find some, people are going to get nitpicky. And for the most part, there was early in his Yankee tenure, like Chapman was great, but the smile on the Altuve home run, everything seemed to go downhill after that. And it's just, I would rather see him, if he's going to pitch well for a below 500 team in Kansas City, go for it. I do not want him being the guy we have to trust at the end of games. It just wasn't working the last 2 years.
No, I mean, you end one season with a home run, you get more scrutiny. You end 2 in a row with a home run, ostensibly, then I think you should probably be removed from the closer's role. And it took another year and a half or so. But without Chapman and Britton, the middle part of this bullpen, featuring some names none of us expected to see, featuring some names that were not on the opening day roster. Aaron Boone's mystery roster move after day one has stuck around so far. You and I there's an obvious number 4 here, and it's Ron Marinaccio, who I'm a little bit concerned about only because the Guardians were all over that changeup yesterday. For whatever reason, they were spitting on it. Second straight outing where the pitch count is too high. Baltimore, he struggled too. We know what he can do. We know what a weapon that pitch is, but the command isn't totally there right now. Doesn't concern me long term, just in the 4 spot right now. That's where the elite relievers stop. But I've got Ian Hamilton 5th and Colton Brewer 6th. I don't know why I have Colton Brewer 6th, but I do. I don't mind seeing either of those people come into a baseball game for the New York Yankees in 2023. I don't mind it at all. And I, in fact, can rock with Ian Hamilton.
Yeah, I like what Hamilton's done so far this year. He's got a 1.81 FIP. Like, I know it's only been a few outings, but he's looked good to start. It's so volatile with some of these guys. Like, I mean, I don't want to take off of Cordero and even Brewer, because I have Brewer further down my list. I have actually Albert Abreu up higher, which he's had a average start to the season. I don't know if I'm blinded by the what year was it now? Was it 2021? End of the season, Albert Abreu was actually extremely solid, and that's what I'm hoping he's going to be. But these last 4, there's nobody. I think you made a good point. There's nobody I don't want to see come into the game, which I think is a bright side. I think there's a lot of teams. There's a guy in their bullpen. They're like, I hope to God we don't have to put this guy in a big spot. I don't think the Yankees have that issue. I think the top 4 are very obviously the top 4, and then there's a definite drop off. But I mean, we kind of saw with Marinaccio last year. Nobody really expected him to be this important of a piece, and now it's hey, this guy's got to be no question in the middle of the bullpen. So maybe Hamilton becomes that guy. Maybe Brewer or Abreu becomes that guy. I think they don't have a problem here. So I'm fine with these guys. I know we have a different order at the end. I wouldn't love them if they're, having to pitch an 8th inning in a 1-run game, but I'm also not deathly afraid if one of these guys comes into the game.
I admit that I'm biased. You have Cordero last. I have Cordero second to last, with Abreu bringing up the rear. Abreu has objectively thrown 7 innings with a 0 ERA so far this year. That's true. 7 innings, 7 Ks, 1.14 whip. He did surrender. You put him into a high leverage-ish situation on Sunday in Baltimore. Nestor comes out with second and third, 1 out. First pitch, 2-run double off Albert Abreu. Both those runs score. For me, it's just it's personal biases, and it's just the fact that he's the one guy who I don't want to see in a tight game. 5-run, 6-run game. If Albert Abreu is the worst guy in my bullpen, or if Jimmy Cordero is the worst guy in my bullpen, then I have a pretty good bullpen. Both of those guys can come into any scenario that is not the highest of leverage. I would equate Cordero to Miguel Castro last year, and he was getting like 6th inning opportunities. So like if Cordero is right at the back of the train, then that's not so bad at all. Dude throws 97, 98. And the other day in Baltimore sort of came in, gave up a bomb, but then shook it right off. I mean, there are worse things than getting tagged by Adley Rutschman. You have him last, and I think that's completely reasonable. I'm not going to argue with like, oh, you got to take Cordero out of there. For me on Abreu, it's just I think Cordero can be used in a high leverage situation. I wouldn't want to do that. Abreu, I would stay away from him almost across the board in that situation.
I think that's a fair point. I guess the Cordero thing, like I just want, like he has the stuff. I think he definitely has the stuff, better stuff than Abreu does. I just also want to see him succeed in those high leverage. I want to see, honestly, we're going to need a few more games to like see how these guys pitch, because everybody's eventually going to have to be used in some of these high leverage spots. Like, for example, I'd be surprised if Michael King is available today because he pitched 2 innings yesterday. So you're going to maybe have to see somebody else tonight in a big spot. And I think the more we kind of see that, the more defined these trees can get. I have Cordero last, just that on paper, you look at his numbers so far this year, it doesn't look as great. He's got a 5.31 FIP, like 2 runs in 3 2/3 innings. But again, we're kind of throwing, like I said, I'm comfortable with any of these guys coming into these games. Like I feel like I'm kind of nitpicking with how his performance has been, because you're right. Abreu on the surface, it's like, oh, he hasn't given up a run, but he came in a big spot and he gave up a double in the Harridan Rutter score. So I think those last 4, you can kind of interchange it. We might be able to interchange this last 4 by day, but early on in this season.
Yeah, we'll see. I mean, Cordero is going to get some run today against Minnesota, I'm sure, and we'll probably flip our opinion there. But the one wrench in the curveball I'll throw in here that we didn't talk about is at some point, I think Clark Schmidt has to go back in here. Where do you put Clark Schmidt if he ends up back in the bullpen? After Marinaccio, after the clear top 4, or behind a Hamilton type? Because I'm inclined to put him 6th.
Interesting. I almost have Clark Schmidt and Marinaccio on the same level. I'm still a Clark Schmidt believer. It's not been a good start to the year. I'm very disappointed because I was hoping, and I think this is kind of just the issue of like we have all these Yankees top pitching prospects. You just want to see these guys succeed because we've watched Garcia completely fall off the face of the earth since his debut. And we watched Chance Adams never really end up getting a legitimate shot, and then he gets DFA'd. So I was like, don't let this be Clark Schmidt's fate. I don't think it's going to be Clark Schmidt's fate, but in the bullpen, I mean, last year, he was one of the guys towards the end of the year I probably had the most confidence in. Again, the strikeout stuff is, I think, really important there. I would probably have him 5th. I also just like the ability he can give you multiple innings, which I think is very underrated with this group, especially because there just aren't as many. They're not going as deep into games with some of these starters, especially if Brito's still in the rotation. I don't think they're going to want him to go more than 5 1/3 innings in games. So I'd throw him 5th. I think he's going to end up back there. I just think whenever Rodón or Severino, the first one that comes back, like the logical decision is Clark Schmidt to the bullpen. It's unfortunate, but that's where I would have him.
Yeah, God, I wonder. They've got to do it, right? You can't, if Johnny Brito continues to be Johnny Brito, you can't send him because they're not sending him to the bullpen. They're sending him back to Scranton just to hang out on the bus with the boys. So Clark Schmidt, there are flashes, there are fits, there are spurts, but even the best Clark Schmidt start was yesterday when the umpires made him come back out there with no warning and no warm-up pitches and go back and throw some more baseball in the first inning. 4 solid innings against the Guardians team that should have really bothered him. And he ended up getting out relatively unscathed, but still that's the best Clark Schmidt start. And it's 4 innings long. And that's the first Herman Schmidt start that the team has won this year. They're 8-4, and they had previously lost every start that their 4th and 5th starters had made, depending on what you consider Brito. But I mean, yeah, it's a natural segue to talk about this Cleveland series where things couldn't have gone worse to start yesterday. Things couldn't have gone worse to start the opening game of the series where the bullpen held on for dear life. They start the game again. Shane Bieber, Domingo Germán. Who's tuning in for that one? If you're just objectively like trying to pick a Yankee game to miss, that's top of the pile. Second and third, no outs against Bieber in the first 2 runs already in. They don't score again. They get the tying run to third with no outs in the 8th inning against the most annoying man in baseball. And the heart of the order up, and we go pop out, strikeout. They don't score. You could make it all the way to the end of the year and not get a more frustrating Yankee game than that. It's obviously one of the first 15 games of the season. You know, who really cares in the grand scheme of things? But you might. Depends what happens, but there's a solid chance that's a top 5 most frustrating game of the year by the time the year ends, just individually. And they shrug it off. They beat the hell out of Hunter Gaddis on Tuesday and win that game 11-2. And they battle back for an all-important win yesterday. The umpire tries his best to put some Guardians runs on the board. And then, I mean, it's almost, you can't write that. He puts 2 runs on the board with umpire malfeasance and then gives the Yankees an extra run later by getting hit in the head with the baseball. This game had it all. And I called the Orioles series, losing the first, winning the next 2, the most impressive of the first 3 series. This was even more impressive than that. It's the same thing against a better opponent and tougher games.
Yeah, I mean, what do we say? Ball don't lie. That's kind of what happened yesterday in that game. But game 1 was so disappointing because they obviously in the first inning they should have gotten to Bieber. You get 2 in and have second and third, and nobody can make a productive out. And then obviously again when Gleyber hits that triple, nobody can make a productive out. Like I feel like that's been the thing the last couple of years with this Yankees team, especially come the postseason. Is like, can we make productive outs? Can we get the big hit with guys in scoring position, high leverage situations? Really hasn't been the case. That's why they've kind of come up short when they have. So I agree with you. I think that game might be one that, 3 months from now, we're looking back at it and I'm like, God, that one sucked. Like we really should have won that game. But to battle back, win all 4 of these series to start this year. I mean, I know the Rays have started hot, but if I'm the Yankees, you cannot be mad about this start, especially the way that they won yesterday. To battle there, just show some resilience, kind of like what the team did early last season when they started and insanely hot. They showed a ton of resilience over that stretch, and really the first half of the season last year, just winning a ton of close games. I think this is a huge win. Eventually, Tampa Bay is not going to play the worst teams in baseball. So to face this Guardians team who kind of been pests. I know the Yankees have won a bunch of series against them, but they're a pesky team. They don't hit a ton of home runs, but they get a bunch of base hits. They have a really good pitching staff. It's a team I'm not worried about, though, without Tristan McKenzie. I'm interested on your thoughts with that. I think, Bieber's going to be Bieber no matter what, but after him, they don't really have the starter where I'm like, the Yankees can't match up with this guy. So, and if we have Cole going against Bieber in a potential playoff series, I'll take my chances there. So, but yeah, huge series win to come out with 2 or 3 after losing the first one.
Yeah, I agree with you. I'm not worried about the team without Tristan McKenzie necessarily, and they don't print pitching quite as much as they used to. You saw the next line of defense, Hunter Gaddis and Peyton Battenfield, those guys coming up didn't necessarily strike fear into my heart. I called this the most fun rivalry the Yankees have right now, and obviously that is colored by perspective, the fact that the Yankees have matched up with them 3 times in the playoffs since 2017 and won all 3. It's the anti-Astros. The Yankees never get past the Astros, so everyone in America is going to say that's the best current Yankee rivalry. But for me, that one sucks. We never win those. So I know what you're saying, but I disagree. This one, there's always something going on. The Guardians are gnats. You're right. They don't go away. Kwan is one of the best pure hitters in baseball. The metrics will disagree, but he's so tough to get out. Jose Ramirez is a top 5 hitter in the game of baseball. So whenever he comes up with runners on base, I think Josh Bell will find himself at some point and stop driving the ball into the ground, which he did all series. Andres Jimenez is extremely underrated. I just like playing this team. But the fans, man, another fan base that doesn't totally have the perspective yet. A lot of chirping this series about how this little team from Cleveland got under your skin with the Karinchak celebration. And it's like, I mean, yes and no. I'm not thinking about them anymore. They were under my skin yesterday because we were playing them. Like, just that one missing element of like, yeah, for the next couple of days, I hate you. But I'm talking about you because we're playing you. Like, we're on to the Twins now. We're recapping a series, but I'm not going to wake up Friday thinking about the Guardians. I am still checking Red Sox box scores to make sure they fucking lose. So it's never going to be that. But when you're in the moment in the Thunderdome with the Guardians, some wonky stuff always happens, whether it is, the Karinchak debate. I am curious how you feel. I think bottom line, I think anybody can celebrate the way he did, but I think I have every right to hate watching it. That's kind of where I land. Like, it sucked. You can do it, but I don't have to get on Twitter and be like, I applaud you, good sir. Like, too many Yankee fans were like, let him talk his shit. Like, he's going to do it whether I let him or not. So can't I just say I didn't like it? I don't know.
I think it's a situation of like, if that guy's on your team, you love him. And if he's not, you hate him, and that you're allowed to kind of have that take. I mean, like, I don't want to see him be fired up after getting out of that jam. Like, I don't, as a Yankee fan, I do not want to see that. But like, if, Michael King wants to do that after getting out of an 8th inning jam, like, all for it. I think it's all about the fan base. But I want to talk about like Guardians fans saying like, oh, under the Yankee skin. In the playoff series last year too, we're hearing about this small market team. We don't hit home runs. We get base hits. Like, yeah, because your owners are cheap as hell and don't want to pay anybody. Like, my whole thing in baseball, just as a whole, kind of has this problem. It's like, don't act like you can't spend the money. Every team in baseball, all these billion-dollar owners can spend the money. It's just some of them don't want to. And that's why we have to give the Yankees credit for, what they do, the Mets credit for what they do, the Braves, the Dodgers, even the Red Sox. Like, nobody's telling you can only spend $35 million on your payroll. You're choosing to do that. So don't sing me this swan song over this underrated underdog story. Like, you traded away Francisco Lindor. Nobody told you had to do that. You decided to do that. Like, that to me, that gets under my skin more than like facing them. I'm like, that's like, don't paint this false picture that you created this situation for yourself as a franchise. So, but I agree with you. I'm not going to worry about the Guardians until we have to play them again. Like, it's fine. The division, especially with how good all 5 teams are this year. Like, that's all I'm really going to be worried about in the AL. I will not subject myself to looking at anything Astros related until the time comes. So, but yeah, I mean, it's a fun rivalry, especially because we're winning it. It kind of reminds me of the Twins. Still, we beat the Twins every time we play them in the playoffs. So, but yeah, Guardians fans, I'll give Karen. You can celebrate the Karinchak stuff, though. I will give that. I would celebrate if it was my guy. So
yeah, and I mean that's it. Again, if you're drawing up a platonic ideal for pitching, getting Judge and Rizzo and Stanton the way he did with the guy on third, no outs. You mentioned productive outs too. Kind of falling under the radar. That's the second time this year the Yankees have had Glaber on third with nobody out and couldn't score him. They did it in the Phillies series too. In the bottom of the 8th, when they were only up 2 and throwing it to Clay Holmes in the wet winter weather. And I was kind of like, that's going to loom large, but they won the game. Nobody thought about it again. But the productive outs thing, it's very funny because that is something the Guardians do very well. It's something we do very poorly. And yet, game 4 last year, you have Josh Naylor celebrating the home run in a game they don't win. They go to New York. They're tweeting up a storm about how this is, a scrappy brand of baseball. And Giancarlo Stanton blows the doors off with a 3-run home run in the first inning, and they never fight back. It's just like, all right, game over. You hit a dinger. Best of luck to you. So they're missing that one, the key element. Maybe Josh Bell's that guy, but not yet.
Yeah, I'm there. Good baseball team. I think they win that division probably, but at the end of the day for the Yankees, I think that you can't, as a franchise, the Yankees can't be worried about the Guardians, especially this year. If your focus is winning the World Series, like, that's not the team that's going to be standing your way. We all know the team that's going to be standing in their way. And it also could potentially be the Tampa Bay Rays if they keep playing like this. But like, if you're struggling with the Guardians with the injuries that they have, not having Tristan McKenzie and who knows when he's going to come back, like, that would be a problem for the long-term outlook of this season.
I want to touch on this just because I don't want to let it go, because I've never seen anything this absurd in a regular season game in a while. They changed the rules this offseason so that managers were not allowed to stare at challenges anymore. You used to have all the time in the world. You used to be able to send a call up to your special guy and like give him 25 seconds to review all angles. Then you go back to the umpire and you go, all right, cool. This year you get 15 seconds. That's it. You make a decision, 15 seconds. If you haven't made a decision, you don't get to make a decision. Yesterday, the Guardians got 2 free runs off a reversal that occurred because I'm pretty sure the replay review operator decided to put the replay review graphic on the scoreboard before anybody called for it, so that the crowd got to watch the play. The crowd got to see the play was called incorrectly, and the crowd got to boo it, leading the umpires to get together and give Terry Francona a free challenge. Did they get the play right ultimately? Yes, that's no secret. Aaron Hicks is the worst, and he dropped the ball, and the ball rolled around. And in a just world with no rules, the Guardians would have scored that run and gotten a chance to score more runs. But in this world that we live in, governed by law, you're not allowed to do what they did. And it clearly was the umpires reacting to the crowd. The umpire said Francona challenge. Francona said Boone challenged, and he didn't challenge. It was a lie. That's why it was such a big Yankee win. They lied. The Yankees came back and won the game, and now it doesn't matter. But the Yes post-game show yesterday was basically just Jack Curry and Bob Lorenz being like, can we go back to that lie? Can we go back to the umpires creating rules? Because that was weird. Then they asked Boone about it. Boone was madder 3 hours after it happened than he was when it happened, when he got himself run. You just hope to never see that in a game that really has some import, and in a game where the Yankees lose by the margin of error there, because the rules are explicit. They were not followed. And then MLB said they were. That would not happen to most other franchises.
No, the other thing is too, is Francona saying that Boone, what was Aaron Boone challenging then? Like, why would Aaron Boone have challenged the play if it was ruled an out like that? That to me, I was like, I mean, Francona, that's just not like, it makes zero sense. It was the whole situation. I said earlier, ball don't lie. Like, it was the whole situation. It just felt like if the Yankees don't win this game, like this is just going to leave the worst taste to end the series this way, like in your mouth. So the fact that they ended up winning the game, absolutely huge. I'm so ready to not ever see Aaron Hicks wear a Yankee uniform again. But I mean, it was just, and I do feel bad for Clark Schmidt in that spot too, because it just kind of put him in a god awful spot. And he's already been struggling this season. Like, the last thing he needed to was have to come back out there. And like you said earlier, like on no rest and just go and get out of this inning now. Like, here we go. So absolutely huge to come away with that win, but just, I don't know how that happens. That just cannot happen again. If they're going to put in these rules and this early in the season, they're already not being followed. Like, when are we going to start seeing that managers just putting their hand up again and we're just waiting a minute and then, oh no, now we'll review it. Like, what are we doing?
Yeah, let's ignore the pitch clock too. It would have been the first game ever won by a scoreboard operator, I think. Since with the manual scoreboards in the 40s, they used to do some sign stealing out there. They put guys with binoculars like behind the blocks in the scoreboard. I feel like since 1951, a scoreboard has never won or lost a game for anybody. But we almost saw it yesterday. I tell you, there was nothing harder than writing about the umpire getting drilled in the head without saying something like ball don't lie. It was so hard. You had to just be like, the umpire got hit in the head with a baseball. The Yankees scored a run because of it. We hope he's okay. That's what happened. All context is obviously we wish him well, but it was so difficult to be like, so yeah, a couple hours after the umpires gave Cleveland some free runs, they got hit in the brain with a baseball, and it gave the Yankees a run. It was very hard not to draw the parallel.
Yeah, it's kind of crazy how it's just so wild. That's also how the game went. But I mean, Yankees lucked out. They got what they needed to win the game. So I'll take it. Honestly, all things considered, just an unbelievable series win. You look at that game. That game was dead in the water the second it started. The fact that they won, it's really insane.
I've never seen anything like the parallels in this series. This one was dead in the water in the first inning, and the Yankees won it anyway, right? Game one, they have Bieber on the ropes, second and third, no outs. He comes back and stops it. Game two, The Guardians have Garrett Cole on the same ropes. He gives up those 2 runs, and nobody remembers it because it's an 11-2 win. But it's runners on the bases, runs in, no outs in the first, and then he doesn't give up anything else for 7. He and Bieber have mirror image starts, and then the third game is somehow the craziest of all.
Yeah, crazy series.
Hopefully they bring the same momentum home today to face their old friends, the Minnesota Twins. And if you're interested in that series and you're a new customer in the New York, New Jersey, or Connecticut area with DraftKings, new customers only, again, we've got a code for you. Bet $5 on any sport, get $150 in bonus bets if your bet wins with the code Yanks Go Yard, no spaces. I got to say this every time I bring it up, so I am going to speed read it. Minimum $5 deposit wager required. New customers only. 21 plus present in New York, New Jersey, Connecticut. Gambling problem? Call 877-8-HOPE-NY or text HOPE-NY 467-369 in New York. In New Jersey, it's 1-800-GAMBLER. In Connecticut, it's 888-789-7777. one fewer 7. Or visit ccpg.org/chat. See full terms at DraftKings.com or in the description below. Let's talk injuries briefly. I was hoping we'd have more of an update on Carlos Rodón at this point. This will not shock anyone who's ever followed this team. We don't know yet. He was supposed to throw a bullpen session on Monday, and the bullpen session was supposed to mark basically the 1 month mark before he would be back with the Yanks. I think we can wait that long comfortably, but not much longer. We found out earlier in the week he had some back stiffness that knocked him off a couple of days, at least, said Boone. But then by end of that day, he was saying Rodón was going to throw a bullpen session on Wednesday. I'd love to know if he did. I still don't know that. Luis Severino threw one that went well. Both are apparently pain-free in the elbow and are just building back up. Severino in the lat and Rodón in the elbow. Everybody's saying everybody's pain-free, but Rodón needs to go through a full spring training progression, and Severino maybe something close to that, and they're never going to rush him because they never do. I think, I don't know how you feel. I think we can continue to survive this until mid-May if we have to, but not much longer because, again, we were almost winless in Herman and Clark starts. You can't win a division at the beginning of the year, and the Rays will hopefully learn that at some point, but you can lose it. So you just can't continue to run out 2 losses per 5-game stretch. You got to eventually get that, because eventually the other starters will start losing games too. Unfortunately, like Garrett Cole's not going to go undefeated. Nestor Cortez is going to lose a game at some point. So you don't want to run out 2 automatics. I think they can make it till mid-May, but beyond that, I'm pretty concerned.
Yeah, I think the other concern too is just like, is the bullpen going to hold up injury-wise as well the rest of this way? Like, we've already lost Loaisiga, now Canley's on the 60-day. Like, if they lose one more guy in that bullpen too, like now you're like, oh my gosh, like they're throwing guys out there, just kind of starving for, can we get through every single game without, somebody going down? I want to be optimistic and say Herman and Clark Schmidt can be better, but it's just so far early returns has not been the case. I think mid-May, you give yourself a month, like you said, you're not going to lose the division necessarily in this next month. You could put yourself at a little bit of a disadvantage, but if you don't have one of these 2 guys back, it becomes a bit of concern. I am slightly optimistic. I'd rather have them be out now than August, September, obviously. And the fact that they've started 8-4 is like, it's a positive sign, but yeah, you don't, just for the Rodón perspective too, just with the forearm, like I would love to see him back in mid-May because we know it's not as serious, like super serious. Like that's the other thing that kind of concerns me with Severino. Like, you never know, he might go through a rehab start and it just might be see you later. So I'm trying not to count on him too much, but they need Rodón back just because him and Cole, that's an elite 1-2 right there. And then you can kind of piece together that 4-5 spot. If Johnny Brito keeps pitching this well, maybe Herman or Schmidt turns things around, but the longer you go with the amount of injuries they have at pitcher, it's just going to be harder to keep up this pace.
Yeah, I'm enjoying the start, of course, but from an entertainment perspective, I was hoping to see, Rodón. The point of the acquisition was to create this fearsome 1-2, and also just to know on a daily basis, I'm waking up and I'm seeing Sevy, Rodón, Cole, Nestor. Like, you're confident in whoever's on the bump. I'm confident in Johnny Brito. but I was just sold a different bill of goods. So until we get to see all those guys working in unison and humming together, which hopefully comes sooner rather than later, I'm just going to feel a little bit, less excited than I should have been. And the Rays, they're going to lose games at some point. Yankees Facebook has to come to this conclusion. Like, we mentioned that a lot of people are keeping track of the standings already on Yankees Facebook. Yankees Twitter and Yankees Facebook are two very different places. They're like 4 out on April 13th. I don't like it. It's like, I don't like the Rays being 12-0 either, but when a team is 12-0, I think you got to stop checking the standings and you got to start measuring yourself against them. They're going to pick up some losses. I don't know. I'm rooting for them to lose baseball games, but you can't get too caught up in it. And one of the things I was gonna ask is, they are playing the Red Sox this week. Sox lost the first 3. Sox are up 3-1 now. Live update. I couldn't really root against the Rays against the Red Sox. I know I'm supposed to. I know the Rays are undefeated. I want to see the Red Sox take some more L's. Yesterday when the Red Sox were coming back in that game, I was like, that was the test. I was like, I still hope they lose. And they did. And I was like, great. Oh, my Rays are 12-0 now. Like, it's just the rivalry doesn't die.
Yeah, I will gladly take Red Sox losses any day of the week. I think the other thing about this Tampa Bay start, they played nobody. They played the Tigers, the A's, and the Nationals. And, the Red Sox are not good. Objectively, coming into this year, every Yankee fan, we're always going to worry about the Red Sox. And just now, the Red Sox are not a good baseball team. They don't have any pitching. Chris Sale's gotten hammered his first couple of starts. They let Xander Bogaerts walk. They are not a good baseball team. So Tampa Bay having to start, they way above expectations just because nobody ever starts 12, 13-0. Sure. But we watched the Yankees build this gigantic division lead last year, and we're sweating games in August and September. So I think like you said, Yankees Facebook, people checking the standings right now, we have 150 games to play. So many things can happen over those 150 games. We were talking about this before the show. Jeffrey Springs got hurt today for the Rays. That's a big blow for them. There's so much time to get caught up in the standings right now is just too much. The key is can the Yankees continue to play good baseball? Can they keep winning series? Because you keep stacking up these series wins, and the next thing you know, you're going to be 10, 15, 20 games over 500. So that, to me, especially with them being at less than full strength, that's the concern. You can't control what the Rays are doing until you play them. So right now, I'm not going to worry about them, but it is great to see the Red Sox losing games. I would love for them to come in last for the second straight year. I'm partially rooting for the O's because I don't think they're going to be better than us, but I want them to be better than Boston.
100%. 100%. I was thinking about this last night just because I knew we were going to talk about this. There was a time when I was a softie in 2003 where, you're a Yankee fan, all you do is win championships and all you do is end the Red Sox season. So even in the wake of the Aaron Boone homer, I'm celebrating like a madman, but I'm kind of starting to think man, it's been, we're in the mid 80s of years here. I'm getting a little bit soft. And now that time has passed, I wish them nothing but ill will forever. I never want to see, I could do another 86 years, but I don't give a shit. How much have you gotten in the last 20 years? 4 titles to 1. They've been the bully since 2004. We have not beaten them in a playoff series since 2004. No amount of last place finishes will be enough for me at this point. And sometimes I would look at a Boston fan and think about, when are you going to soften up on the Yankees? When are you going to soften up on my team? I know what it's like to have I root for the Knicks. I know what it's like to have a team that's hopeless. A team that's just nowhere close, or when they get close, they're not going to win the title. The Knicks are just like a little appendage in New York. You don't watch the Knicks thinking these guys are going to be a ticket to a championship someday. You watch the Knicks to enjoy yourself, and then whenever their season ends. Those Red Sox fans for 86 years had the Celtics winning 20 titles and the Bruins being the most dynastic team in the 70s. And the Patriots won all those Super Bowls in the early 2000s before the Red Sox won a title. I shouldn't have even been soft back then. And you think I'm going to be soft now? No. 40 more years of last place finishes would not be enough. I will never relent on this. These people have 30 times the amount of things they should have right now.
Yeah, and part of it, just the baseball fan in me, I just don't agree with what the Red Sox have done. Just not paying your homegrown guys, trading Mookie Betts, letting Xander walk. I want to see them fail doing this. What they're doing, and we know the Henrys have billions and billions of dollars. Like them trying to like be like not a small market, but like pinch pennies kind of at some of these corners. Like I don't want to see teams succeed doing that. And like maybe that's the new school baseball. Like I don't know. You have $1 billion owners. Like the goal should be trying to win a championship every year. Like you trade away Mookie Betts, like he was the MVP of the league. You let Xander Bogaerts walk at 31 years old. Like what are we doing here? Like that's why I was all about this offseason. Like I don't care what it takes. Bring Aaron Judge back. Like yeah, maybe the last 3 years of his contract he stinks. Who knows? But like you're gonna let him walk after this? No, you can't let it happen. So I don't like the way the Red Sox have done it. You just don't like the Red Sox in general. So give me all the last place finishes. I hope they get swept by everybody. Get them out of here.
You got to wonder. I mean, it's got to bum Red Sox fans out that they hired the Connor Roy of the Tampa Bay Rays front office. They got the only one that doesn't know the secret sauce. Big bummer. Chris Sale has an 11.25 ERA. Whoops. And they also let Franchy Cordero walk this offseason. He went to the Baltimore Orioles. They didn't think 400 in spring training was worth keeping him around. Yankees needed a solution right before opening day. They go with Franchy over Esteban Florial. At the time, we go, oh man, a bat first guy with high exit velo who's never put it together and he can't play the outfield as a defensive downgrade. Why are we shuttling people off the roster? Smash cut to, is this the best Red Sox to Yankee of all time? Maybe second best behind Babe Ruth. 4 home runs so far on the season. The rip against Trevor Stephan yesterday, 112.7 miles an hour off the bat, 439 feet out to right center field to tie the game. And Esteban Florial, would you look at that, is back at AAA. He cleared waivers. Nobody wanted him. So the Yankees now have both. And Franchy Cordero is he's a tough person to take off this roster, even when Harrison Bader is back. Willie Calhoun goes down for somebody, but Josh Donaldson's coming back. They're going to have to make a decision. It's Franchy or IKF, Franchy or Hicks. Like, what are you going to do? Franchy gets the reps now. Why would Hicks stay?
I agree. I've been saying this in spring training. You got to pay him anyway. DFA Aaron Hicks and Josh Donaldson. Don't keep them on this roster. What are we doing this for? Like, it is so obvious. One, that Aaron Hicks is fed up because he's not playing every day. And 2, the Yankees really don't want to play Aaron Hicks. The only reason they're playing him is because he's getting paid $70 million. That's the only reason he's on this roster. And at this point, like, you're going to pay these guys anyway. If you're going to pay them not to play, like Donaldson, maybe it's a different scenario because it's the last year of his deal, but I think that almost gives it more of a reason to, if he's not producing, get him out of here. It's off the books at the end of the year anyway. What do we care? And yeah, if Cordero's going to hit, like, why not? I feel like he's done more in this 2-week span than Jacoby Ellsbury did as a Yankee. Like, it's kind of that he's already up above him on the Yankee Red Sox the duo list there. So I don't see why not. You got to ride the hot bat. I think like what they did a few years ago when everybody was hurt and they had like the Cameron Maben team and they just had a bunch of guys who like kind of had no business being there, but like they were winning ball games because of it. Like, why not do that with some of these guys, with a guy like Cordero? Like, I don't see the harm in it. They kind of did it with Trevino last year. Like, nobody expected Jose Trevino to be an all-star, and it worked out. Like, we know what Aaron Hicks is. We know what Josh Donaldson is. Like, Willie Calhoun, yeah, you can send him down, but like, there's no reason to keep these guys on the roster and just eat up a roster spot when at the end of the day, Aaron Boone's going to fill out his lineup card and like he's probably like in excruciating pain writing Aaron Hicks left field in there every single time. Like, there's no way he's like enjoying doing that. So I don't know. You just got to cut your losses. Like, Brian Cashman can save face another day. Like, let's cut the losses.
And Hicks doesn't really even seem to appreciate it when he comes in. He's loping around center. He gets to play center field yesterday for the New York Yankees. He's loping around. The ball finds him 3 times in a row. He handles 1 of the 3. Catch probability is like a coin flip on all 3 of those, and he goes 33%. And helps unravel that inning. He's a joy to watch. More Aaron Hicks, please. In 2019, the injuries helped them sort that out, right? It seemed like every time they had to make a tough decision, somebody else got hurt, and it was like, all right, well, I guess we don't have to. Maybe DJ LeMahieu, who's day-to-day right now with some sort of tightness. Maybe they played safe with him and they put him on the IL. I hope they don't, but injuries continue to sort of push these tough decisions down the line, or at least they did 4 years ago, and maybe this year is going to be more of the same.
Yeah, I think at some point, like, just naturally, like Stanton's probably going to find his way to the IL. It just happens. Like you said, LeMahieu probably will at some point. But I mean, you also is like, I would rather see Cordero and even Willie Calhoun. And to be honest, I'd rather see IKF get some of these opportunities over Donaldson and Hicks. Like it's just, there's only so many times you can do it. Like the definition of insanity is doing the same thing over and over and over again and expecting a different result. Like this is what year 3 of Aaron Hicks being god awful. Him like not making routine plays that should be routine. Like those balls that he didn't get to yesterday, Harrison Bader gets to all 3 of those, no question. So it's like, what are we keeping him here for? Because he's not even a serviceable replacement for the guy that you need him to replace. I get the money issue. I understand that's like from the franchise's perspective, it's tough to just cut losses with that. But if you're trying to build a winning baseball team, like at the end of the day, if they get to and this is way further down the road, you get to the postseason roster. Who wants Aaron Hicks on this postseason roster? Well, they didn't want him on the postseason roster last year. So what makes you think you want him this year? To me, it's if you give up on a guy like Cordero or you send him down because you have to, like, the fact that they were able to get Florial back, like they've already made a tough decision. I didn't want them to see them DFA Florial because you could have lost him. They did it last year with Andujar, and like Andujar can't play a position, so it's fine. But like you put yourself in this position where it's like there are guys who are more productive that maybe just don't exactly fit what you want to do. Like Andujar was a more productive hitter last year than Aaron Hicks was when he was on the roster. He just couldn't play anywhere. So it's like, why are we just doing this for the sake of doing it? I would hope that they come to their senses. Maybe somebody makes up a fluke injury for Donaldson. He's on the 60-day. Like, I don't know what's going to happen, but I would hope that they don't send Cordero down if he keeps hitting like this.
Yeah, I think we're probably going to escape it. What did Aaron Hicks do when they put him on the postseason roster last year, too? He ran knee first into an infielder and almost blew up a game 5 and got himself knocked out for the whole rest of the playoffs. He brings nothing. He's a chaos agent. He brings nothing but chaos wherever he goes. Then he gives an interview after sucking that's like, I wish I got more of an opportunity. What can I say? It's like, okay, great. Thanks, buddy. Yeah, it's more of the same and hopefully less of the same moving forward. 8-4 start, though, 3 series wins, followed by a 4th and a big one in Cleveland. And now they're coming back home to face the Twins. The Blue Jays find their way into this long homestand. This is where it gets fun. Keep differentiating yourselves from the pack and hope the Rays lose. Although, of course, the Rays have already tied up the Boston Red Sox. we were talking about the Rays losing, and not so much anymore. 3-3 and runners on base. What can you do? But until next time, I'm Adam Weinrib. You can find me on Twitter at Adam Weinrib. We thank you all for watching us today, for commenting along. Drunk, I'm sorry I couldn't answer your trivia question. I wish I knew, but we never lead the league in home runs. I mean, Tino Martinez led the 98 Yankees with like 25. I think Tino led the AL in 97. I could be wrong. And then maybe it was like a Maris before then. Honestly, I don't know if we led the AL in home runs in that entire gap. Maybe Reggie did it. I don't know. Peter, if you have any thoughts.
Was it maybe an A-Rod year? Would there ever been an A-Rod year?
I'm sure
Could have been a year. Maybe one of his 50 years, possibly.
Yeah, I think the 57 had to have led the American League in home runs. I'm going to Google that just because I'm mad now. 54. Yeah, he led him in 2007. So A-Rod's up there too. But yeah, everybody keep pondering that trivia question. You can find us live on Twitter and YouTube Mondays and Thursdays, 2:00 Eastern time every week, potentially more than that. We got to go live for a major tentpole event. We certainly will. And again, you can find me on Twitter at the handle below. You can find us at Yanks Go Yard FS. It's a fun place to talk sports. It's a fun place got a lot of Guardians followers this week. Not sure I like that. I don't think I'm going to really enjoy seeing those folks around, but they did join the fray, and we thank all of our followers, no matter which team they root for. Peter, thanks for joining, man. And where can the folks find you, your content, what social handles do you want to promote? I don't know if you do TikToks. Drop it all. This is Plug Central. Where will people find you?
Yes, sir. So I appreciate you guys having me on. You can find me on TikTok, on Twitter, on Instagram at Peter Dewey 2, right there. A lot of NBA content for me, but also big baseball guy. Definitely going to be doing a lot of Yankee stuff. Hopefully get to join the show with Adam a couple more times throughout the season. So appreciate you guys having me on. This was a blast.
This was a blast. Put a bow on it. The Jeffrey Springs injury is left arm ulnar neuritis. So the Rays have invented another injury, but that one sounds pretty bad.
Not good. Not good.
Well, we'll see everybody on Monday. Peter, thanks again, man. This was great. And why don't we let's take it to the Minnesota Twins one more time? How about that? And if not, well, we'll come up with some excuses on Monday's show. But so far, so good from the New York Yankees. We'll see everybody next week.